So, this is a lead meeting, and the person I've asked, I personally have never heard give a lead. Um, but I have heard him share at meetings that I've been to, and I've always liked what he had to say, respected, and related to what he had to say. So I'm very happy to introduce Matt.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matt, and I'm an alcoholic. And if I make it till midnight, I'll have 22 years. Fingers crossed. I used to come to this meeting when I first moved to Greenville back in '06 and '07, back in those days. I haven't been here in a long time. Last time I came, it was so packed I couldn't even find a seat. But tonight I got here early, so I grabbed a seat, and it's good to be back here. It's funny, when I first came here, the meeting was here in the basement of this building, and then we were over next door for many years. I guess I'll talk about what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. I grew up in a small town in northern Connecticut, right on the border of Massachusetts, in the Connecticut River Valley between Hartford, Connecticut, Springfield, Massachusetts. A little bit different area. My town was about 10,000 people, kind of like Greenville. But in that area, you have one town next to another, 10,000 people. It's just like one after another. So it was kind of a rural area. There was farming and, corn, and they raised potatoes and alfalfa, and still grew a little bit of tobacco in those days. But it was a great place to grow up. I had really a great upbringing. My dad was a printer for 17 years, and just after we moved, they bought the house in Summers where I grew up, and I was born there. He decided a couple years after that to open his own business, and he had a great love of woodworking, and he used to make all kinds of things out of wood. He was really talented, and people back in his family had been woodworkers, and they told him he should go into business. So he left a union job and a pension and all that behind to start his own business. And for a while, he would work in the shop, and when somebody would come in, he'd have to leave what he was doing and go up and talk to them. Had a little showroom up in the front. They took over an old garage from the 1920s, turned it into a woodworking shop, and a little space in the front of the building for a display. After a year or two, it got busy enough that my mom went up there and kind of manned the store, and I was old enough that I could be in kindergarten during the day, so she didn't have to be home with me. When I got home, my brother would kind of keep eye on me. He was 4 years older than me. But I had a great upbringing. Parents were around. I used to go up to the shop. I used to work with my dad, and he showed me how to do woodworking and finishing, and I learned a lot from him. I used to work in the store. As I said, I had an older brother, about 4 years older than me. And when you're a little kid, 4 years is a big difference. So he tried to take me along as much as he could, but it was hard because there were a lot of kids in our neighborhood his age. They kind of ran around as a gang and did stuff together. And, sometimes I would tag along with them, but sometimes they really didn't want me along. And unfortunately, there weren't a lot of boys my age in my neighborhood. There were a couple girls, but when you're a little kid, girls don't want you around. They're interested in other things. They kind of develop faster. They're more mature when they're younger. So I was, either because of that or because of my own nature, even as a kid, I was kind of a solitary kid. Always headstrong, stubborn, a little bit of a know-it-all. I'll admit it. I think I was a pretty good kid. I didn't get in trouble a lot. I had a problem talking. My mom would take me to mass, and I just could not be quiet. and I would get spanked just about every Sunday when I got home from church. And I remember the church we went to, on the back of the pews, they had these little metal clips where men used to put their hats, and they would clip them there. And I would play with that thing, and my mother would say, "Don't play with that, don't play with that." And the priest would be, holding the host up or something, and I would snap it, and it would echo through the whole church, and embarrass my mom and the whole thing. And in school, I had the same problem. I was a little bit of a clown. I learned that I could make the other kids laugh, and I could kind of be popular that way, be a little bit of a comedian. But the teachers didn't find it that funny, unfortunately. Um, a lot of my report cards would say, "Matt is not working to capacity." That was my most common thing that I got on report cards. I was pretty bright as a kid. I would pick stuff up quickly. They would start talking about the lesson, and I would pick it up pretty quick, like what they were going to talk about, and then I would get bored. And I was very undisciplined. I didn't want to do the hard work. I didn't want to do the homework. I didn't want to pay attention. My mind was already onto something else. And so my grades, for considering I was fairly intelligent, my grades really weren't very good going through school. Um, I don't know, I think my mom had a similar problem when she was in school, because my parents didn't really rake me over the coals for that too much, because I think she had gone through similar experience when she was in school. But I guess I was kind of a different kid, though, even from early on. If we went to social gatherings at friends or family, I used to want to hang out with the adults. I would sit with the adults because I thought what they were talking about was more interesting than what the kids wanted to do. Usually the boys wanted to blow something up or knock something over or jump off the roof and I was like, why would you want to do that? But I was just kind of a little bit different even as a kid. And when I was in fourth grade, my dad almost died. He had some kind of a medical event that they thought at the time was a heart attack. But I know he was in the hospital, and my mom's father, my grandfather, was in a different hospital at the same time. She was trying to run the business, take care of us kids, manage the books. She was at her wit's end. And it was a really kind of a stressful period for our family. A couple of years went by. It turned out my dad had kidney failure. That was part of the problem, and it went back to World War II when he had malaria. He was in Panama, and he got malaria, and it damaged his kidneys, but it didn't show up until much later. He had to go on dialysis. He was on dialysis for about 6 years. So during my teenage years, when I was like normal guys would be maybe getting in trouble or doing this or doing that, kind of acting up a little bit, testing the waters, who they were, I always felt like I couldn't get in trouble because we already had kind of this crisis in the family. We all had to pull together. So I tried to be that good kid and help out and be helpful to my mom and stuff like that. My brother, as I said, he was a little older. His girlfriend got pregnant. He had to get married right away. So that was kind of an example to me, like what not to do. That was kind of a tough thing for us. But I dated girls all through high school. In fact, I was pretty popular. It may be hard to believe right now looking at me, but I was fairly good looking when I was a teenager. And I dressed pretty well, and I had that great hair back in the 70s, all feathered back and down to about my shoulders and all that. All those products we used to use and everything. So starting when I was a sophomore in high school, I got invited to other people's proms, and I was fairly popular, I would say. And I liked girls a lot. I got along well with females and had several friends who were female, and but I didn't really want to sleep with them, and I couldn't quite figure that out. It didn't, because I didn't have really anything to go on. I grew up in a, as I said, a pretty rural area, pretty conservative time. People think the 70s was like free love everywhere, but it was really a pretty conservative time, and I didn't really know that there was anything other than a man with a woman having a marriage and having children. And I kept trying to do this, and I just couldn't figure out why it wasn't working for me. Um, when I was 17, let's see, my dad was on dialysis. New Year's Day, he got a kidney transplant. Okay, you get that call, like, okay, there's a cadaver, it's a match, you got to go to the hospital right now. He had to drive to Boston, which was about a couple hours away. They did the transplant. It worked great for 6 months. And it was crazy because he was like the man that I remembered when I was a little kid. Like positive and, alert and like present and, somebody you could have a conversation with. After 6 years being like on the couch, out of it, depressed, long beard, all that stuff. Um, I graduated high school June 14th of 1979. June 15th, our class all went to the beach. And when I got back from the beach, my aunt and uncle were there. And when I walked in, they said, "Your father died." He had gone in the hospital for a minor operation because of a circulatory problem with his toes. And he died in the VA hospital unexpectedly. He had something to do with like plaque in his blood or something. So that was really hard, to deal with that after we had him back and then he went. Um, and during this period, I would say like starting when I was about 16, I got my first job outside the house. When I was younger than that, I worked at my parents' store and finished furniture, sanded furniture, worked in the store. But at 16, I decided I wanted a job outside the house. So I got a job in a restaurant, this fancy restaurant in our town, the Summers Inn, and I started as a dishwasher, and moved up to be a busboy. And that's where I started drinking because there was always somebody who would make what we used to call a packy run. Go to the package store. That's what they call them in New England, where you buy liquor or beer. And, we were like 16, 17-year-old guys. I was a dishwasher. There were some busboys. Sometimes one of the cook assistants. We would go out after work and just sit in a car on a back road and just drink beer, and talk and shoot the bull. And, we felt like we were all pretty grown up doing that. Um, and I found that I really liked beer. I liked it because it made me feel like I fit in, made me feel like I was one of the guys. I didn't worry about people asking me questions or things I didn't want to talk about. I was just, I was like that normal teenager that I really wanted to be. A month or so after my dad passed away when I was a senior, I continued drinking through those couple years, probably junior, senior year. And I had a girlfriend who was from Puerto Rico. And she went home to visit her family. And when she came back, she brought me this big suitcase full of everything you need to make pina coladas, because that was a big thing back then, including the rum, little napkins, cherries, special glasses. Man, I thought I was like the shit. I had this thing, and I would invite people over that I worked with, and I would get the blender, and I would make these drinks, and I was like a bartender, basically, at 17. And I thought that was just the greatest thing. I couldn't. Plus, they're delicious. I mean, I don't know if anybody remembers them, but they were really good. And I just thought, this is it. I've really found this thing. I found this thing that was missing in my life. It's fun and games, and it's a lot of laughter, and it's fitting in, and I'm one of the guys, and I just thought that was just the greatest thing ever. About a month after my dad passed away and I graduated, I was an exchange student for a year. I got accepted in my senior year in this program that my dad told me about because this nurse where he went for dialysis, her son or daughter had gone, and he told me about it, and I applied and I was accepted, and I was young enough, because I graduated when I was 17, that I could go the year after I graduated. I didn't have to really worry about grades or anything. I had to attend classes, but I was supposed to go to France because I had studied French, but they closed the program that year. I ended up going to Colombia in South America, and I lived there for a year. Got there, didn't speak any Spanish whatsoever. The first 6 months was super hard because people would try to talk to me, and I couldn't. By the time I figured out what they were trying to say, they were already talking about something completely different. But again, I fell back on that drinking. In Colombia, if you have money and you go to the bar, they're going to serve you. I mean, not if you're 7 or 8, but like I was 17. Nobody's going to question me. And I was on my own, and I was living with these other families, and they didn't like me going out. I tried to kind of keep them happy and keep them off my back, but they were like, hey, you're using our house like a hotel. That's not what this is supposed to be about. But, you know how it is with us. When we get that taste of alcohol, it's like, man, this is what I've been looking for. These wonderful horizons opened up before me, and my life was going to be just wonderful. And people thought I was funny, and I learned how to dance, Colombian music and salsa and all that. And I felt like I was an adult, I was there. I fit in. Uh, Women liked me, you know. I don't know if they liked me or they liked the prospect of a visa or coming to the U.S. or something, but I had no problem if I asked somebody to dance. They were glad to dance with me. One night I was in this discotheque, and they closed, and I went outside, and there was a very busy boulevard in front of this discotheque, like 6 lanes wide. I went out and I was doing cartwheels across the boulevard. And this friend that I was with, he was like, you almost got hit and killed. But, when I had that alcohol in me, I was just invincible. And nothing could stop me. I was just like a locomotive. Well, came back to the U.S., went to college for a couple of years, hated it. I didn't like what I was studying. I was in a business program. Um, Continued to drink. Now, when I was a kid, I remember hearing about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I remember hearing about alcohol and hearing like, well, alcohol can be fun, but you have to be careful because sometimes people get caught up in it, they do too much, and it starts to control them. So I was aware of the dangers of alcohol, even as a kid. And I had an uncle, he used to come visit us sometimes, my aunt and uncle, and he would have a little glass of Fleischmann's whiskey that he would fill when he first got up. And that glass never went below half. He didn't drink it fast or get drunk or anything, but he always had that whiskey all day long. And I remember hearing from my mom and parents that you really shouldn't do that. That wasn't, alcohol was okay like for social occasions, special times, but not something you should do every day. So I can't say that I didn't know the danger, because I did. And in my 20s, I moved to Boston. I came out as a gay man. I finally kind of realized all these feelings I'd been having. I finally realized what was going on, what the deal was. And I was in Boston. I was 21 years old. I didn't have my own apartment. I shared an apartment with other people, but I thought I had arrived. It was like, okay, I'm in a place where I can live as a gay man. I didn't broadcast it. I didn't tell everybody, but in a big city, people are not going to really bother you. If you don't bother them and make an issue of something, nobody cares. So to me, that was great. I could be anonymous. I could live my life the way I wanted. I could do what I wanted. I got a job, and I supported myself. I paid my rent, paid my bills. I was kind of proud of myself. I was an adult. I was doing what I was supposed to do. And for many years it went on like that. I'm not going to go through every single thing I did as an adult, but I did go back to college. I got my degree. I was in Washington, D.C. for a while doing an internship as part of my college studies. I went back to Columbia, did an internship there. And at every step of the way, alcohol was a big part of my life. That was kind of the reward. I would do all this stuff, this hard stuff, or stuff I didn't want to do, get up early, go to work long days. But there was always that reward at the end of it, and that was alcohol for me. And I really controlled myself for a long time. I want to say 20 years I drank. And occasionally I would have too much or something would happen, a little off, and I would think, well, I got to be careful, can't go overboard, got to watch myself. I'm an adult, I got to take care of myself now. So I've heard people give leads and they say, I drank alcoholically from the first drink. That was not my story. So if that wasn't your story either, if somebody in here is thinking like, I wonder if really I am an alcoholic, I drank without problems for many, many years. I controlled it. But the problem for me with the alcohol was it was always there, you know. It was this legal, socially acceptable thing. If I had something to celebrate, what am I going to use to celebrate? I'm going to go out to the bar where I know people, where I'm going to have some drinks. They're going to play the kind of music I like. Maybe I'll pick somebody up and get laid, you know. That was fun. That was, and that the alcohol was a central part of all of that. I remember one time getting laid off from a job. You know, they hired me at this restaurant. I trained for like 2 weeks, and then they said, we're going to let you go. And I found out somebody was on vacation for 2 weeks, and I think they were just kind of using me, but they fired me. Yeah, until the guy got back. But I remember being out on the pavement, you know, leaving the place, cleaning out my locker, and thinking, okay, it's 6 o'clock in the afternoon, what am I going to do? Well, what do you do in a big city when you're young and single and horny and money in your pocket? You go to a bar, especially if you're a gay man, you know. And back in those days, I'm telling you, early 80s, the gay clubs were so much fun. They were just amazing. It was like you go through the looking glass and it's a completely different world. And you might be talking to a policeman or a judge or, you know, you could be talking to anybody. And if you went in that place, nobody questioned you, nobody would take pictures, nobody would talk. It was like it was like through the looking glass. And it was great. And I just thought that was the most wonderful thing. But again, and this is a big thing with the gay community, because we were kind of forced to exist in the shadows for so many years, the places we were welcome were bar rooms. Those were the places that would put up with us and allow us to congregate and be there because they would make money off us. And I'm not complaining. I'm not blaming those people. You know, they ran a business to make money, and I went there and I participated. I was glad to have those places to go to because most places we really weren't wanted. We weren't welcome. Today I can go in a restaurant with my husband, any restaurant, any place I want to go. We can sit down, and I can't remember when I've been treated even just differently. You know, we're treated just like everybody else. I try to be very respectful. I try not to, you know, make a point of it or an issue of it or anything, but I feel like now we can go anywhere anybody else can go, which is a real blessing. But, you know, during that 20-year period, my drinking really progressed. And the reason it progressed is because it was always there. It was like that friend, you know, that was always there. Good times, bad times, anything. That alcohol was, I always knew where to go to get the alcohol. And I always seemed like I felt better afterward, you know. It seemed like it was that special ingredient that just made everything better. If I had a bad day, it made my day better. If I had a good day, it made it even better. But I got to be in my early 40s. I had met my now husband in 1996. We've been together about 28 years. We got married in 2008, so we've been married about, well, since then. But he was an exchange student from Brazil, came to Greenville, lived there for a year, went back to Brazil, did his military, then decided he wanted to come back to Ohio. And he lived in Ohio a little while, wasn't doing much, joined the Marine Corps. Marine Corps took him to Washington, D.C. He was in for about 6 years. He worked at the White House, Arlington Cemetery. He got out, and I met him in 96, and we've been together since then. So in '06, we were visiting Greenville, and I saw a house, and I just kind of fell in love with that house. And I knew he would love to be in Greenville because all his friends are there, and I felt like I could maybe see my way through. But I got to back up a little bit because I got sober in 2002. And what it was like at the end was just a tremendous isolation, you know. Nothing really changed. I was still employed. I had a car. I had so-called friends, people I knew in the bar. But more and more of my life revolved around the bar. That was really what it was. And I got to a point where it just seemed like I had problems in every single area of my life. I had financial problems. I had problems with my partner. I had problems with people I worked with. I felt like I should have a big career, but every time I tried to get into something, it never panned out. It always turned into a failure. And it was like everywhere I turned, it was just everything was closing in on me. Everything was a failure. And I was very religious back then. I was a lector at a big church in Washington, D.C. called the Basilica, where they do midnight mass on Christmas and all that and broadcast it. And I used to just pray to God, like, God, show me what you want me to do. I'm trying so hard, give me the grace to show me the path you want me to be on. Because I thought I was this kind of victim, right? And that life was just throwing all this crap at me from every direction. Because I didn't realize I was causing it, I didn't realize that the alcohol was causing a lot of it. And then this up here also. And I remember waking up one day, October 26th, 2002, and it was a Saturday morning, and I just, a lot of my drinking toward the end, I was really defensive. If somebody said something about alcohol or about being careful, I would get really mad and really defensive. I would think they were talking about me, and I'd be like, who are you to tell me? If you knew what I had to deal with, you would drink like I do. I take care of people all day. I used to work in restaurants and hotels. And I had a lot of anger on the outside. But what I really had inside, and I didn't learn this till I got in this program, was I had a lot of guilt. I had a lot of shame and fear. And I was carrying this big bag around on my back of all this guilt and shame and fear. And it always came out as anger. And I was so lonely and so isolated, and I wanted to make connections with other people, but every time I would try to get close to somebody, I couldn't because I was carrying all this negativity around with me, and nobody wanted to be close to me. Nobody wanted anything I had. They could see that I was messed up. They could see that I was just a ball of ego. Sometimes I tell the story when I give a lead, it's about that phrase, self-will run riot. Matt, when he's drinking alcohol, it's kind of like, okay, we're in Coldwater, right? Let's say you want to go to Muncie from Coldwater. A normal person would drive on the road, right? Follow the road, follow your GPS or whatever it is, take you to Muncie, the shortest way. But Matt on alcohol says, no, I know better than everybody else. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. I'm going to drive in a straight line to Muncie. Imagine what your car would look like when you got to Muncie if you drove there in a straight line, if you got there at all. Well, this was how my thinking was when I was drinking. I always knew better than everybody else. I would never listen to other people. I might pretend to take your advice, but I wouldn't take it. I always knew better. I would always have to do it my way. I was very stubborn. And it would be some kind of crazy thing like that, like something that was sort of like half true. Yeah, sure. Shortest distance is a straight line, but you can't do that when you're driving. You go over fields and forests and everything else. Well, that was kind of how my life was. And my life was kind of like that car when you get to Muncie, how it looks. Beat up, weeds in the wheels, bumper hanging off. That was kind of how my life was when I found AA. And I woke up one day and I came down the stairs and I said to Eddie, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to do something different. I just felt like a balloon that all the air had gone out of. All that fight, all that anger that was keeping me going and trying to maintain appearances, somehow it just all drained out of me and I didn't care about anything anymore. I just was defeated. I don't know how else to describe it. But, in a lot of the AA literature, it talks about that jumping off point, or that point we get to where we're ready to do anything. And I really didn't think alcohol was my problem, even then. I thought alcohol was this one little friend that helped me deal with all the problems around me. But I checked around, I made a couple phone calls, and I found out where there was a meeting. I went to the meeting thinking, this is going to be like every other meeting I've ever been to, every other group I've been in, every other class I've been in. I'm not going to have anything in common with any of these people. All the stuff they're going to talk about is not going to apply to me because I'm special, I'm unique, I'm different. There's never been anybody in history like me, right? That's what I went in with this attitude. But at the same time, just kind of like hopeless and desperate. And I couldn't believe when they started talking. It was a very just kind of low-key meeting. Some people didn't talk. Big city meeting. You'd have people that just come in, sit. Some people would sleep. But the people who did talk, I couldn't believe the things that they were saying. Because a big part of my drinking was I used to say, everybody's a fake. Everybody's a phony. They all pretend to be all these things. They're all full of crap. And nobody's really what they say they are. Nobody's honest. Nobody really cares about anybody. It's all about appearances, and it's all about, all that stuff. That's who I was. I was projecting that on the rest of the world. And I couldn't believe when I went to this AA meeting, hearing people share such honesty, hearing this honesty of people trying to be honest and talk about what they had gone through, and in some cases, things they were doing to try to deal with cravings, deal with people they had to deal with, just really low key. And nobody jumped on them, nobody corrected them, nobody criticized them. Everybody was very respectful and listened to them. And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in a room where I really belonged. And I mean, what does that say? If an AA meeting is the place where you really feel like this is, like they say, my best thinking got me to an AA meeting. And that's so true. I mean, it sounds sort of like a put down in a way, because the rest of the world kind of looks down on AA. It's like, oh, you're hopeless, you have a problem, you can't drink. But to those of us who know this program, we know the tremendous power that is in these meetings, that is in this program and this literature. But this is the place that I finally found some sanity. I found kindness. I ran into some people who were very similar to me, know-it-all, like to correct people, like to criticize people, like to be right. I have a very strong streak of that, still. But I also was really fortunate to run into a couple people who were really kind, who listened to me when I probably didn't make any sense at all, and they just let me talk, And they might say something now and then, not to push back against me, but just maybe introduce a little bit of different perspective. And little by little, I started getting some clarity. And it was like a little tiny window opened up and a little ray of sunshine came in, and I started thinking, maybe there is another way. Maybe I don't have to keep going in this tremendous pain and desperation and hopelessness that I was in when I finally came in. Maybe my life can be something better than this. If I stay around here and listen to what these other people have done, it seems like it's working for them. Maybe it could work for me. Now, in the beginning, what I was most afraid of was myself, because I was very good at screwing up good things when I came into AA. So if I ran into somebody who was that kind of person like I am, my character defects, I stayed away from them. Stubborn, like to argue about what Bill Wilson meant or what Dr. Bob said or what the program is really supposed to be. I just stayed away from those people. I stuck with the winners. I stuck with people who had serenity and had something that I wanted, because I was afraid that I would somehow lose this last chance. I really just kind of claimed my seat, and I went every night. I was fortunate. I worked in a restaurant, and I used to get out around 10:30, and there was a meeting every night at 11 p.m., 11 to 12. And it actually was in a gay clubhouse right around the corner from where I worked. So it couldn't have been, it was like a blessing, you know. And it wasn't always perfect, you know. I wasn't always, I didn't do this program perfectly. I had 4 sponsors my first year. Uh, I learned a lot in my 4th step, I will say that. I learned stuff about myself that I didn't know. I thought I was this independent person that only followed my own conscience. And I realized when I did my 4th step that most of the things I did were just trying to be the opposite of what everybody else was doing, to show that I was better and I was special. You know, because that, when I think I had all this guilt and shame inside that I had to be better than everybody else. Because deep inside, I had this suspicion that I was worse than everybody else. Everybody else seemed to know what they were doing. They seemed to be moving ahead. They were building careers, building families. What was I doing? I was just floundering, you know. And I had all that shame and all that guilt. So fast forward, a lot of blessings today, and they're all due to this program. As I mentioned earlier, my husband and I have been together 28 years. We have 2 houses. We have 2 cars. I have a Harley that I bought 2 years after I got sober. That was like one of the gifts of the program. That was really important to me. My bike before that had a handlebar that was rusted through, and it was like broken. When I rode it into the dealer, he's like, "How did you ride this bike here?" Because the handlebar was like swiveling on the 2 mounts because it had rusted through completely, and they couldn't believe I had gotten there and not killed myself. But I'm very active in politics in Dark County, and I know this is an AA meeting. I don't like to introduce politics, but it's one of the gifts of the program. I'm the chairman of the Dark County Democratic Party. I'm also one of the 2 Democrats on the Board of Elections, which is kind of an honor, and we do a lot of the stuff of running the elections in Dark County. And I feel like, you know, once you get sober, you can't just sit in the same mess that you were in when you were drinking. Once you get sober and start coming to these meetings and start feeling better and your clarity comes a little bit at a time, then it's time to find out who you are. You got to look inside and say, okay, did I used to have some hobbies that I abandoned, or did I like sports or swimming or horseback riding or woodworking or anything? That's when it's time to fill up your life with all those positive, constructive things. Because alcohol takes up most of our life when we're drinking, either trying to get it or enjoying it or dealing with the aftermath. So it's so important when we get sober to fill all that empty space with things that we really enjoy. Because being sober is not just about, it's not like a religion. It's not just about repeating things over and over. It's about having a wonderful life. If you have a wonderful, enjoyable life filled with positive things, constructive things that you really enjoy, friends, relationships with your family, that thought of a drink is going to get further and further and further away. I'm not saying it'll never come back to you. It'll sometimes come back when you least expect it. But you're going to be stronger if you have all that positive stuff going on in your life, constructive stuff. So don't be afraid to go out and live your life and get involved in things. You know, AA is a great place to be, especially in early sobriety, and going to a 90 and 90 is a wonderful thing to do your first year. You know, really grow in the program. Because that first year or two, you may not see a lot of growth in your life. It's like when you plant a tree. The first couple of years, that tree doesn't seem to do much. Maybe it stays alive, but it's developing that whole root system, right? And we're just the same way in AA. The first couple of years, we may feel like, hey, I'm doing all these things right. How come everything isn't perfect in my life? How come I'm not wealthy and big job and, you know, gorgeous girlfriend or boyfriend? You know, how come everything isn't perfect? I'm doing everything right. But you have to be a little patient because you don't realize those little steps, how far they're taking you away from that other path you were on. And one other thing I'll say before I close, it's sort of like if you leave Dayton, you're at the Dayton bus station, and one bus is going to Los Angeles, one bus is going to Seattle. pretty far apart, your destinations, okay? That's like sobriety and drinking. The first 100, 200, 300 miles, it may seem like those buses are just traveling next to each other. You may not see a whole lot of difference in the road that those buses are on. But after a while, almost imperceptibly, they become further and further apart. And one of those buses is going to take you to a much better place. So sometimes don't get discouraged in the early days, or even people that have some time under their belt, if it sometimes feel like you're in a little bit of a lull, or things aren't just great like they should be. Keep doing the things that got you sober. Try to fill your life with positive stuff and constructive stuff and positive people. And you will find when you look backward, you'll be amazed at how much progress you have made. And you're going to end up in a very different place than if you were still drinking and using. So thank you. I probably went on too long. I appreciate your attention. That's all I got. Oh, okay. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. Good lead.
When I was drinking, nobody wanted to hear what I had to say.
Yeah, I was very happy to hear your lead tonight, and I related with a lot. And the thing that I held on to the most was, you said that yours wasn't like jump in and you were gone with your alcohol. It was progressive, and just that feeling of isolation that you had at the end. And mine was pretty hidden and I was pretty much gone, but that isolation that I felt at the end is eventually what brought me here and what made me stay here today. So even if you have we have different ways that we got here, it's still, you can still see the similarity in it. And then when you were talking about like the hobbies and stuff like that, that recently here has really helped me. I have gotten into different hobbies, and I think I was blessed to have like my first year of recovery. Well, right when I got sober, I was pregnant, and so I had two. I was pregnant, and then 11 months later, I had another kid too. So I found out that I really liked being a mom, and I think those two kids too were brought into my life at the right time. So that's, I guess that's not really a hobby, but something I like to do. I do like to be a mom, so I think that happened for a reason. But I'm gonna open the floor for anybody that wants to share.
I'm Randy, recovering alcoholic. I want to thank you, Matt, for coming down and sharing. I just appreciate seeing you around. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. Jim Alcott.
Jim.
I ran a record store in the South Shore Plaza in the early 80s. And I remember moving there from the Midwest, moving to Boston.
Braintree?
Yeah? Yeah. That music hall store there, yeah. Just for a year or so. But anyway, I remember they learning that they called beer and wine stores package stores. Packing. Yeah. I love that. I love that term. Packing. And I got transferred away from there after a year or so, and I was so bummed out that I couldn't get that to catch on in any of the other markets. So I tried. Let's go to the packing, get something to drink.
Yeah.
What? So yeah.
Make a run.
I always thought it was good. They had the best. They had the best.
And they like to drink, and that's oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big drinking area.
It was a mess. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Steve Alcoholic. Man, what a great lead, Matt.
Yeah,
I see you at meetings all the time, and I just felt like I never really knew you that well. And I can relate to so many different things in your story. Great lead. You called alcohol your friend at one point. And boy, I had a friend for 38 years, a good friend. And when I had to let that friend go, that was massive, man. And I also felt that isolation and just that feeling of defeat, where I had just been, all my life, I've been fighting and fighting and fighting to always recover from mistakes and troubles that I'd gotten into, and that fight was gone. I didn't have no more fight. And I was totally deflated, totally defeated, and I was like, good God, there's nothing more I can do.
Thank God we
I need
found
help.
this
Yeah,
program, huh?
no doubt. You know, it took a little bit of work, but I made it through, you know, and loved your story, and I'm glad you were here, and I'm glad I was here tonight.
I will say, if you heard something like you said that inspired you and you thought it was really great, that's my higher power talking through me. If you heard something that pissed you off and gave you resentment, that's all me. Because I'm very good at that.
I'm Jeremy, I thought like.
Hey, Gary.
Congratulations, you're 24 years.
22.
22.
Yeah,
I heard it a few years ago, and that's a good message.
thank you.
Just how this program grows on you.
It's amazing.
It just changes everything. Thank you for being my friend.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks,
My
Gary.
name's Tom Nagahali.
Hi, Tom.
I was at Rugby League. I'm glad I was here. And we're talking about. I lived with a gay guy for 2 years down in Florida, and he took me to some of the. We were both sober, and he took me to some of the best clubs I ever been to. And I had so much fun. I loved it. I loved to dance back then. I can't do it now. But I loved to do it back then. And that's wonderful. I'm glad you're here, man. That was a good lead. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh, he took me to Fire Island.
Oh, wow. That's a high-class place.
I know. I had a great time now.
Yeah.
My name's Wes, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi,
Wes.
That was pretty good. You could, I don't know, we could have put that together as a YouTube video or something.
I think he recorded it.
Oh, my
I
God.
will.
He asked me beforehand.
It was well structured and told a lot about yourself. So, and it's a message of hope. You know, somebody as stubborn as you can get it.
Isn't that true, though? Yeah.
Thanks for being my friend.
Thanks, Wes.
Thanks, Wes.
Jorge, alcoholic.
Jorge.
So I'm thinking what you say about the process, we don't want to see the change right away, right? Like it take time. But I feel great. It's only 6 months when I'm here in this
Awesome.
place. And I want to keep feeling that way. And I'm happy to listen to your story. Thank you.
I remember in my life, in my first year, it was like, you know those big turbines they have underneath a dam, hydroelectric dam? I felt like that was kicking on in my life. I felt all this power coming back into my life from sobriety, and I hope you have that same experience.
Anybody else? In closing, we would like to remind you that the opinions expressed here were strictly those of the person who gave them. Take what you like and leave the rest. Also, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of our program. Therefore, who you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, let it stay here.
Here. Coach slips up here.
Matt, will you take us out?
I'm not gonna do that one, Kevin. Kevin remembers me.
Yeah, I know what happens with that.
I'm not gonna say that one.
Say it.
Not in a, no, I didn't make it up. I heard it in a meeting. They said, who slept with our mother? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. You can come back and work it. Hispano, no? Yeah. Mucho gusto.
Hey.
¿De dónde?
Jalisco.
Oh, mexicano.
Yeah, so I can't really find out
México es
more
un
than.
país grande. Tiene cosas increíbles.
Yeah,
La
yeah.
mayoría de los pueblos en la frontera.
I was looking at you to speak. Did you see me? Oh.
Te puedo dar una
I know.
Mi español es un poco diferente a lo tuyo. Por Colombia. Pero yo hice un trabajo en México hace 10 años con los coloteros.
Oh, pero sí lo similar casi.
Good to see you, sir. How you doing? Good, all right? Did you early? I took some, yeah, I wasn't planning to, but,
Mucho gusto.
Planned, do some advertising.
Online,
Got this exhibit ready to open with the Veterans Portrait. So it's taken a brochure from the service office. It's right across the hall.
And when we went down there, it was in.
David, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
That's a manly man.
Hey, what's up, man? Sponsor. Good. And we went, we was down there.
Where you sitting, Stan? Were you sitting over there?
I'll come over here. They had it. It was a little place that they had set up. It was called Oak.
That's what you're.
I'm a doing.
And the volunteers. And this is where.
Here's your pen.
It's Tom.
How are you, sir?
And it was all like mobile homes.
That's what I'm smelling.
Dormitories, tower houses.
Yeah.
Is that real good?
It got a little cold down there.
How was it?
Just like a window. It's like
Take you out.
water lines were freezing.
Literally just straight sterilization.
Yeah, watch out, huh?
And it was
But
just
that was in the whole area, more Morton area.
Kind of like across from the house. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Well, we go to the one in St. Mary's.
That's old Doc Desi lets me eat dinner, and I go to bowling alley.
Who got you that? Steve? Oh yeah, 'cause you got some laundry.
We're not supposed to tell him.
Not too bad. Little bit slow.
Works, Maria, good job.
Yay. Yeah, that could have been real bad.
Well, my son was born in 68 and I went off to work at 6 o'clock. I had got more down about 6 miles. I slept down there one day, tried to work. And it gets more cold. It's cold with snow. And you need it. I've been east to two.
What? Oh. What?
He turned around like,
Well, you never know.
We've had a couple people.
No, good, I got this Sprite.
Yeah, yeah. Straight vodka. I don't know if that's right in it.
Well, you're not too big.
June 5th, yeah, that sounds pretty close. You have a good day? You have a good day?
A day off is
Sure did. Good luck to you. Same here.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Coldwater Friday night group of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are a lead meeting group. My name is Miranda, and I'm an alcoholic. Would all who care to please join me in opening this meeting with a moment of silence for those who are still sick and suffering, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Here at Coldwater Friday night, we encourage sponsorship and getting a home group. If you are interested in getting a home group or a sponsor, see a home group member after the meeting if you have any questions. Will home group members please raise their hands? AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I've asked a friend to read how it works.
I'm Morgan, I'm an alcoholic. I'm Morgan. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. If you've decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked, although we thought we could find a softer, easier way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was no, until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Morgan.
man.
I've asked a friend to read the 12 traditions.
Sam and I'm an alcoholic.
Sam.
12 traditions of AA. Number 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there's but one ultimate authority, the loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group is be self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thanks. I've asked a friend to read the promises.
Steve, alcoholic.
Hey, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hello. The spiritual life is not a theory, we have to live it. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. There may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter. And there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases. But we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises?
I think not.
They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
I have asked a friend to read the daily reflections.
Jim, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, everybody. It's October 25th. AA's heartbeat. Without unity, the heart of AA would cease to beat. That's from Miss Bill C's at page 125. Without unity, I would be unable to recover in AA on a daily basis. By practicing unity within my group, with other AA members, and at all levels of this great fellowship, I receive a pronounced feeling of knowing that I am part of a miracle that was divinely inspired. The ability of Bill W. and Dr. Bob working together and passing it on to other members tells me that to give it away is to keep it. Unity is oneness, and yet the whole fellowship is for all of us.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Good stuff.
I've asked a friend to read the 24 hours a day.
My name's Paul and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
October 25th, AA thought for the day. That I have learned to live one day at a time. I have finally realized the great fact that I have that sweeps away all vain regret, and it keeps my thoughts of the future free of fear. Now is mine. I can do what I want with it. I own it, for better or worse. What I do now, in the present moment, is what makes up my life. My whole life is only a succession of nows. I will take this moment, which has been given to me by the grace of God, and I will do something with it. What I do with each now will make me or break me. Am I living in the now? Meditation for the day. We should work at overcoming ourselves, our selfish desires, and our self-centeredness. This can never be fully accomplished. We can never become entirely unselfish. But we can come to realize that we are not at the center of the universe, and that everything does not revolve around us at the center. I am only one cell in a vast network of human cells. I can at least make the effort to conquer the self-life and seek daily to obtain more and more of this self-conquest. He that overcomes himself is greater than he who conquers the city. In the prayer for the day, I pray that I may strive to overcome my selfishness. I pray that I may achieve the right perspective of my position in the world.
We celebrate various lengths of sobriety at this meeting. I've asked my friend Jorge to tell us about it.
Hello everyone, my name is Jorge and I am alcoholic.
Hi, Jorge.
Here at Coldwater, we hand out tokens for different lengths of sobriety. We start these tokens like it is suggested with work a program 24 hours at a time. Is there anyone they starting out or coming back, they need a 24-hour token? 1 to 2 months. 4 to 7 months. 8 to 11 months. A year. 18 months. Is any year there or after? Does anyone have any time they want recognized? We all have today give yourself a high
We have no dues or fees in AA. We are entirely self-supporting, declining outside contributions. This self-support includes our rent for this room, the coffee and refreshments, and contributions to the district area central office and the general service office. If you have a court slip that needs signed, drop it in the basket and it will be returned to you at the end of the meeting. All right. For announcements, the Winchester meeting will now meet in Farmland, Indiana at the Christian Church on 212 North Main Street on Tuesday at 7. The annual Sydney AA Sausage and Sauerkraut Dinner, that's Tuesday, December 17th. Fellowship's at 6. Dinner is at 6:30. And lead is at 7:30. And that is in Sydney at 230 East Poplar Street. Please bring a covered dish or dessert and a friend. And then, Kev, will you tell about the Fort Recovery? Because I didn't pull it up on my phone.
Kevin, I'm an alcoholic. This Sunday, Fort Recovery Group will be having a little fall get-together at the church where we hold the meeting. I believe it'll start at 4:30. We will provide soup, coffee, and water. Bring a dish or a dessert to share. We will have prizes for costumes, not mandatory that you dress up, but if you don't dress up, you're not going to get a prize. And then that will be from 4:30 till 7, and then at 7 o'clock our meeting will start. And I believe we're gonna have a short Al-Anon lead from 7 to 7:30. And then we will have a short AA lead from 7:30 to 8. So, should be a good time.
We have food too, you say that?
Yeah, we got food.
Yeah.
Soup and,
I forgot board games, I forgot games.
oh yeah, and then there'll be games and fellowship,
Maybe Paul will bring a life-size Connect Dots thing.
Connect dots.
Yeah, and if you wanna take Joni and I on a youth, bring it on.
challenge.
Any other announcements? Okay.